the moment that I think I got what you meant was the Moana video, right? So where you brilliantly showed that, okay, so we have those images, but they present this deeper reality that tell us something about our current situation, like the mechanics of the current world surface in that movie, and then we can see that, right? And
Yeah.
and especially shocking was the scene with the pile of those flat stones and then the shell on the top, right?
Yeah, that was so clear. It was, I mean, if you doubt my interpretation up to that point, when you see that pillar with this shell on top, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, it was definitely like the definition of this moment, right? Kind of.
Yeah.
But then I checked the comment section, right, under that video, and there was someone talking about how the shell can actually be the rainbow over the mountain, or that it can be the finishing
crown.
up, the crown. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. That's the thing that's what makes it all very ambiguous and strange, is that in a way, maybe that's what's happening ultimately in this moment. But, it does, can I say this? It's that maybe that's what's happening, but it's also, there's a scandalous aspect to it. It seems to happen through scandal, but so it's like, we don't excuse the scandal, even though it might be ultimately revealing some little hint about how all the things come together at the end.
Yeah. So would that be okay to say that? So the patterns there, we have the pillar and we have this let's say the crown, but then the interpretation is something else. Like if it's like a positive finishing up of the hierarchy, like the decoration, or if it's like the harbinger of breakdown soon.
Well, the thing is that in a way, so especially in Moana, it's what you have with people in Disney, and a lot of this is that they have a very, very actually profound and intuitive understanding of these symbolic structures, but they are weaponizing them. And so that's the problem. And so often that's what some people point out to me. They'll say, like, there's this aspect which seems to be true, or seems to be pointing to something true, and often they're right. So for example, that image is very powerful, but in the story, it's represented as a kind of replacement scheme.
Okay.
Because it ends with, let's say it ends with Maui being completely left out of the equation, and then this, the having Moana, let's say, solve the problem of the goddess and all this, like these two women encountering each other ends up being the solution to the problem. And so it shortcuts the usual masculine feminine relationship, which brings about that's like the birth of a new world. So the image, for example, the image of the pillar is, you're right, that there's something of it that can actually reveal a high mystery about reality, but then it ends up being weaponized. Okay, but you see that all the time. That, like I said, a lot of the people, even some of the wokest of the woke, they have a very deep intuition about these patterns, and they're using them. And that's why Christians and people who don't want to be completely taken over by this thing have to be able to understand it. It's the same with the rainbow symbolism. You're right. The current ruling party that is ruling in terms of cultural narrative, they're using the rainbow in a way that's completely symbolically right. Like it's a perfect understanding of the rainbow. It's just weaponized in one direction, and therefore it becomes a problem because it's almost like a devouring. It's using the ornament to devour the image. And so you can imagine the idea, like, of the pillar and the crown. It's like this crown is trying to eat the world. It's trying to devour the normal.
Yeah. So, like, from the technical perspective, when interpreting like a work of art, like a movie or animation of sorts, you get the full idea of what this pillar with this shell means in the light of the following scenes, not in itself, like in isolation, right?
Yeah. So it's you always have to interpret the patterns as all together. Like, and that's, I think I always tell people, when you're interpreting a movie, for example, You have to stay inside the movie as long as possible, because people tend to right away see something and say, oh, that's an image of Prometheus, and then they jump out of the movie to now make these analogies. But it's like, wait, before you do that, why is that image of Prometheus used among all the other images that are there? You need to get that first before you tell me about something else. And so always my recommendation is for people to let the story tell you what its relationships are. And so like this happened, for example, in the Green Knight movie, where people would take certain aspects of the Green Knight story, and then they would say, oh, this is good. Like, this is a powerful image of some powerful image, but like, okay, yeah, but you have to be able to account for all these patterns working together in order to really see what it's about, and not just isolate one. And so it ends up being the same with scripture, right? Ultimately with scripture, you have to kind of get to the basic pattern before you take a verse and you just say, and you just kind of put it out there. A lot of modern Christians, that's what they do. They just take a verse and put it out, and then it looks like it means something, but you always have to have it in balance with all the other stuff going on. Okay,
so you teaching all of us to think symbolically, like the symbolic way of thinking, is a kind of apologetics, right?
I mean, maybe. I mean, I think you could see it that way. Apologetics, in the sense that it's at least proving the case that the patterns that are in scripture are useful for you to as a lens to see the world, and so it can open people up to wanting to explore them more.
Okay, so do you think there could be a danger in that, in like you had with the Green Knight, like people interpreting just things taken out of context, maybe, and maybe you can do the same thing with the scripture, right? And when you interpret,
oh yeah, for sure, yeah, people do it all the time with scripture. It happens all the time. The word heresy means choice. Like, that's what it refers to. It's like a heretic is someone who takes an aspect of something and then takes it to the exclusion of the others. So you can use an aspect of scripture to create complete, aberrant things, like things that are completely wrong if you isolate them from everything else.
And symbolic thinking does not protect us fully from that, or does it?
Well, if you do it properly, it'll help, because what you want to do is you always want to be able to perceive the different aspects of each part, and so there's also there's always, especially like in Old Testament stories, I always tell people, each character has several sides to them. And so let's say Jacob represents something in a pattern, but Jacob has a light side and a dark side. You can see the story from the perspective, from different perspectives, and see the effect from different perspectives. So that helps to kind of balance things out. And so, but there are totally have been moments where people have pointed out to me, I think, that I missed some aspect. Like, for example, in the Moana video, there are people that've said, well, maybe you could see it this way. And I'm like, oh, you know what? There's even though I do think that that's what Disney was doing, my basic interpretation. Sure. But sometimes you can miss some aspects if you're too focused on that.
Well, especially in the light of all the other movies they're making, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like if you see all these movies getting put out with all the same thing, you can try to isolate one and say this one isn't as bad, but it's really happening in a way that's almost impossible to. I mean, if you look at what's going on now, it's just crazy. Like, it's accelerating to levels that is just so caricatural and absurd. Like DC Comics, I think it's like almost every one of their characters now is like some LGBT character. So it's like, Wonder Woman is bisexual, Robin is bisexual, Superman is bisexual. Everybody is one kind of, and that's just the first step, because the bisexual one is the most, like, the easiest one to swallow, because it says, oh, he still likes, but he's also, and then it's just going to keep going. It's going to get weirder and crazier and more insane.